Hi guys! I watched the first episode of the new Netflix original. How many new Netflix originals are there at the moment? It's crazy. But the new Netflix original show Between the other day, and I thought that I would just sit and do a quick first impressions video on that. I'd seen a couple of articles about this online, but in all honesty I really hadn't read anything about it before I went to watch it. Unlike Grace and Frankie, which I was very much aware of what Grace and Frankie was going to be about before I watched it, I really didn't know much about Between. I knew that it was focused on teenagers, so I felt like it was going to be a kind of YA type show, but I really wasn't sure. So the show is set in a town in America called Pretty Lake. The very opening scene is actually a flash forward to what happens at the end of the episode, which I really enjoyed. And then by the time the episode gets properly started, it is earlier on in that month, and we begin to meet our main characters. We are introduced first to Wiley, who is a teenage girl at the high school in Pretty Lake, and she is very heavily pregnant. We also meet her friend Adam, who is a fellow school pupil and who is one of these very highly intelligent types. From this conversation we gather that no one knows who the father of Wiley's baby is, and that's really the kind of first interaction that we get between any of the main characters. Shortly after that, someone in the village is found dead. I'm not going to say who so that I don't spoil it for you, but someone is found dead. They have coughed up a lot of blood. It's not a particularly attractive time, but this is the first person to be found dead. However, as the episode progresses, more and more people within the town of Pretty Lake start to die in exactly the same way. They show absolutely no symptoms, they do not appear to feel unwell, nothing has been happening, and then all of a sudden they are struck down and they're dead. Within days, these numbers start to shoot up into the hundreds and eventually into the thousands. So the government puts the town of Pretty Lake into a state of quarantine. No one is allowed to leave and no one is allowed to enter. As the episode progresses, one of the characters does a little bit of digging and realises that no one under the age of 22 has succumbed to death by this strange, mysterious illness. So we get the vibe that this is going to be quite a teen or young person centric show. So moving on from the plot, I'm going to talk about the things that I actually liked and the things that maybe I didn't like quite so much. I've got some notes on my phone, so I'm going to double check them. I really liked the opening. I felt like the opening scene was really cool. It was that sort of flash forward situation where you really had no context for it, but it was quite an exciting moment, and then going back sort of to earlier in the month. I mean, that's quite a common way that shows start, but I quite enjoyed the way that they've done that. Something that I really like about this show is that they're using kind of digital content very interestingly. So they are putting up on the screen like sort of death toll and numbers and all that kind of stuff. So there's text appearing on the screen quite frequently. We have text messages between people coming up and appearing on the screen, so you can see the conversations between people just appearing on screen as they're talking. So I really like that. I think it looks very cool. I think it's quite an interesting way to explore the kind of communication between different people, so I really like that. I also really like the concept overall, because I think what's going to be quite interesting about this show is it's going to take, I think, a look at morality in terms of how people behave when they feel like the end is nigh, if that makes sense. So in that kind of apocalyptic situation, so you feel like the world's coming to an end, do people stay true to who they have always been, or do they take advantage of the fact that there are no rules anymore and start to cause chaos? So I think that is going to be really interesting, and that's the kind of story that really kind of engages me. So I'm excited to see where that goes. I also think the political aspects of it are very interesting, the way that the government is already very much involved in this. I think that that's going to be quite cool to see how that kind of develops, and reflective of maybe what could happen in a situation like that. There were a couple of things that I'm not 100% sold on. The first thing that I've got noted down on my phone is underreaction maybe. So I feel like at a couple of the death scenes, you'll know what I mean if you watch it, but I felt like there was maybe a little bit of an underreaction, that I expected people to be a little bit more shocked. I don't know if that's just the script or if that is the acting, I don't know, but I felt like I expected a little bit more shock at the times that people were actually dying. So if you've watched it and you felt that, let me know in the comments down below. And the other thing that I wasn't like 100% sold on so far is the dialogue. I felt like the dialogue was a little bit clunky at times. I felt like there were moments where things were said that you were just like, no one would actually say that. And obviously in television there are situations where things have to be explained, especially in pilot episodes. It's very difficult because you don't want to do that thing where you're like spoon feeding the audience, this is this person and this is their background, but you have to get the information across to them somehow. And I felt like there were some instances where it might as well have been kind of like a list of character kind of traits and relatives, and like there were moments where people referred to each other by what relation they were to each other. I think there was a line that was like, oh, my nephew, the genius, that just didn't really feel like it needed to be there. And so I don't know, I feel like I'm quite invested in dialogue, and I felt like maybe at times it was a little bit clunky, but I don't know if that's maybe just the nature of the pilot episode, and that will improve as the episodes go on. Overall, I liked it. I'm not as excited about it as I have been about some other pilots that I've watched recently, like the first episode of Grace and Frankie and the first episode of Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt. The minute I watched these shows, I was like, yes, I'm really excited to watch the rest of this. In terms of Netflix originals, I mean, and I got really invested in them right away, whereas with this, I'm going to give it the benefit of the doubt and I'm going to give it another opportunity. I don't know if maybe it's slightly more difficult because unlike Grace and Frankie and Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, all the episodes were put up right away, so you could kind of go and binge on them. Whereas this is a week by week kind of situation, and so I don't know if it'll maybe be a little bit more difficult for me to get sort of really engaged with it, but nevertheless, I am going to persevere and I will let you know further down the track how I feel about this show. So if you watched the first episode of Between and you have any feelings about it, please let me know in the comments down below. I would really love to hear your thoughts. I really hope that you enjoyed it and that you're having a good week. I've got quite a few videos planned for this week, so hopefully I will get some time to film later in the week and put them up. And otherwise, I hope you're having a lovely day. So thanks very much for watching and I will speak to you again soon. Bye! Favourite TV actress? I have a lot of answers for this, but if I am completely honest with myself, it would probably be either Kristen Bell, Jennifer Morrison or Lauren Graham.